The command center of Haldron Station buzzed with activity as officers prepared for the Voidborn attack. Jack stood at the central table, looking at the tactical display. The entire Voidborn fleet was moving toward them in perfect formation. "They're not hiding their approach," Jack said. "They want us to see them coming." Admiral Krell nodded. "A show of force. They believe their numbers will overwhelm us." "How many ships can we gather to defend the station?" Ilara asked. 43 combat-ready vessels," Krell replied. "Not enough for a direct confrontation." Jack studied the display, his mind racing through possibilities. The Voidborn had adapted to his tactics of unpredictability. They had learned to anticipate the unexpected. Now he needed something truly revolutionary. "We won't fight them directly," Jack announced. "We'll make them fight themselves." The room fell silent as all eyes turned to him. "Explain," Krell said. Jack pointed to the tactical display. "We know their neural network links all their ships. What if we could inject false information into that network? Make them see enemies that aren't there?" "How?" asked the chief engineer. Jack turned to him. "Those modifications we made to our communication systems. Instead of using them to talk to each other, we used them to talk to the Voidborn ships. We broadcast signals that mimic their own network transmissions." The engineer looked skeptical but intrigued. "Theoretically possible, but we'd need to get very close to their command ships." "Then that's what we'll do," Jack said. "A small team. One ship. We slip through while the rest of the fleet distracts them." Admiral Krell shook his head. "Too dangerous. Their entire fleet would be between you and their command ship." "Not if we're already waiting when they arrive," Jack said. "The Artemis still has those stealth modifications we installed. We could position it near their approach vector now, before they arrive." Krell considered this. "Who would go on this mission?" "I would," Jack said without hesitation. "No," Ilara stepped forward. "You're too valuable to risk." "I'll go." Jack turned to her. "It has to be me. I understand the Voidborn neural network better than anyone. I know what signals to send." "Then I'm going with you," Ilara insisted. Jack wanted to argue but saw the determination in her eyes. He nodded. "We'll take a small crew, just enough to operate the ship." The plan came together quickly. The Artemis would hide near an asteroid field along the Voidborn approach. When their fleet passed, Jack would use specially designed equipment to broadcast false signals into their neural network. Meanwhile, the Alliance fleet would spread out in small groups around Haldron Station, ready to attack when the Voidborn ships fell into confusion. As Jack prepared to board the Artemis, Admiral Krell approached him. "When you first arrived, I thought you were either a fool or a fraud," Krell admitted. "I was wrong." Jack smiled. "I had my doubts too. But humans are good at making the best of bad situations." As the Artemis moved into position, Jack and Ilara worked together to prepare the signal device. Their hands touched often, each contact lingering a little longer than necessary. "If we survive this," Ilara said quietly, "I want to see Earth." "When we survive this," Jack corrected, "I'll take you there myself." The wait seemed endless, but finally, the Voidborn fleet appeared. Massive ships moved through space in perfect formation, a demonstration of overwhelming power. "They're passing our position," the pilot whispered, as if the Voidborn might hear them. "Activate the device," Jack ordered. The signal device hummed to life, broadcasting carefully crafted false data into the Voidborn neural network. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, like a ripple spreading across water, confusion spread through the Voidborn fleet. Ships began to change course, some turning to fire on their companions. Others stopped completely, as if unsure what to do. "It's working," Ilara said in amazement. Jack activated the comm system. "Admiral Krell, now." The Alliance fleet moved in, targeting the confused Voidborn ships. Without their perfect coordination, the once invincible armada became vulnerable. From the Artemis, Jack watched as the Voidborn fleet, The force that had terrorized the galaxy for decades began to fall apart. "This is how humanity survives," he told Ilara. "Not by being the strongest, but by being the most adaptable." As the battle turned decisively in the Alliance's favor, Jack Miller, one human from a distant planet, had changed the fate of an entire galaxy. The victory at Kulturis changed everything. For the first time, the Alliance had pushed back the Voidborn from a major system. But the cost had been high. Captain Allen and his crew were lost, along with 2 other Alliance ships. Jack stood at the memorial service, watching as the names of the fallen were projected into space as points of light. Ilara stood beside him, her hand occasionally brushing against his. "They knew the risks," she said softly. "They believed in what you were doing." Jack nodded, but the weight of responsibility pressed down on him. These weren't his people, yet he felt responsible for each life lost following his strategies. Admiral Krell approached after the ceremony. "The Council wishes to speak with you," he said. "They're impressed with our success." The Council chamber was different now. Instead of doubt and fear, Jack felt a new energy in the room. The Alliance leaders looked at him with respect. "Mr. Miller," High Chancellor Elia began, "your tactics have proven effective beyond our expectations. The Voidborn are retreating from 3 key systems." Jack nodded. "But they're learning, adapting. Our advantage won't last if we keep doing the same things." "What do you suggest?" Counselor Bren asked. "We need to modify our ships," Jack said. "The Voidborn expect certain capabilities from Alliance vessels. We need to surprise them with new technologies, new weapons." He pulled out sketches he had made, showing modifications to standard Alliance ships. Some were simple, changing engine configurations to allow for unexpected maneuvers. Others were more radical, weapon systems that fired in random patterns rather than logical sequences. "These changes go against thousands of years of our engineering principles," said the chief engineer, studying Jack's designs. "Exactly," Jack replied. "That's why the Voidborn won't expect them." Over the next weeks, Jack worked with Alliance engineers to implement his ideas. Ships were modified, weapons reconfigured. Jack emphasized one principle above all others: unpredictability. "Humans call it thinking outside the box," he explained to a group of engineers. "You have to forget what you know and imagine what could be." While the fleet was being modified, Jack also worked with pilots and ship captains. He organized training sessions where officers were faced with unexpected scenarios and had to improvise solutions. "Don't try to find the perfect answer," he told them. "Sometimes a good enough answer now is better than a perfect answer too late." Many officers struggled with this approach. They had been trained to follow procedures, to find optimal solutions. Jack was asking them to trust their instincts instead. Ilara proved to be his best student. She quickly grasped the essence of human unpredictability and helped others understand it too. "Humans evolved differently than any species in the Alliance," she explained to a group of confused officers. "They were prey animals that became predators. They learned to outthink creatures stronger and faster than themselves." Jack was surprised by her insight. "How did you know that about our evolution?" Ilara smiled. "I've been studying your species since you arrived. Humans are fascinating." Their relationship had grown closer over the weeks since Kulturis. They spent most evenings together, sometimes discussing strategy, sometimes just talking about their different worlds. One night, as they watched the distant stars from the observation deck, Ilara asked, "Do you miss Earth?" Jack thought for a moment. "Sometimes. But I'm needed here." "What will you do when the war is over?" she asked. Jack hadn't considered this. Since arriving at Haldren Station, he had focused entirely on defeating the Voidborn. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe explore the galaxy. There's so much I haven't seen." "Perhaps I could show you," Ilara said, her hand finding his. Their moment was interrupted by an urgent message from Admiral Krell. "Jack, Ilara, report to the command center immediately." When they arrived, Krell's expression was grim. "The Voidborn have launched a massive offensive. They're coming straight for Haldren Station with their entire fleet. Jack studied the tactical display. The Voidborn were approaching with over 100 ships, far more than the Alliance could match. They're not spreading out or dividing their forces, Jack noted. They're committing everything to one target. Us, Krell said. They've identified the source of their recent defeats. They're coming for you, Jack. 3 months passed, and the Alliance had won 17 battles using Jack's tactics. Ships moved unpredictably, communications were deliberately irregular, and captains were encouraged to make their own decisions rather than follow strict orders. But Jack noticed something concerning. The Voidborn were learning. "Look at this," he said to Admiral Krell, showing battle footage from the most recent encounter. "Their response time is improving. They're starting to predict our unpredictability." Krell leaned forward, his 4 eyes focusing on the screen. "You said they would adapt. What do we do now?" "We change again," Jack said. "We need to target their command ships directly. If we can disrupt the central node of their neural network, the effect will be much greater than just taking out relay stations." The Council approved a major operation, a strike at the heart of Voidborn-controlled territory. The target was a planet called Culturus, which intelligence suggested housed a major Voidborn command center. Jack planned the mission carefully, working with Ilara and a team of the most creative officers in the fleet. They would use a combination of decoys, false transmissions, and deliberately contradictory movements to confuse the Voidborn defenses. The night before the mission, Jack found Ilara on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. "Worried about tomorrow?" he asked. She turned, her blue skin glowing softly in the dim light. "This is different from our other missions. We're going deep into their territory. If something goes wrong—" "It might," Jack admitted. "War is unpredictable. But that's our advantage." Ilara looked at him closely. "You've changed us, you know. Before you came, we thought only about survival. Now we believe we can win." Jack felt something stir inside him. Over these months, his respect for Ilara had grown into something more. He wondered if she felt it too. "Be careful tomorrow," she said softly. "I always am," he replied. The mission began at dawn. 40 Alliance ships, divided into small groups, approached Culturus from different vectors. Jack was aboard the command vessel with Admiral Krell, coordinating the complex dance of ships. The Voidborn responded immediately, sending out patrol ships to intercept. But they couldn't be everywhere at once. While they engaged with decoy forces, the main strike team slipped through their defenses. "We're approaching the command center," reported Captain Allen from the lead strike ship. "Minimal resistance so far." Jack frowned. It seemed too easy. "Wait," he said suddenly. "It's a trap. They've been letting us in." As if to confirm his words, a massive Voidborn dreadnought emerged from behind Culturus's moon. It was unlike any Voidborn ship they had seen before, larger, with weapon systems that glowed with strange energy. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Admiral Krell ordered. Jack studied the tactical display. The Voidborn ships were moving differently now, less like drones and more like independent hunters. "They've adapted to our tactics," Jack said. "They're mimicking our unpredictability." "What do we do?" Krell asked, real fear in his voice. Jack thought quickly. If they're trying to be unpredictable like us, they're still following a pattern. The pattern of not having a pattern. "Captain Allen, take your ships directly at that dreadnought. No evasion, no tricks. Just straight in." "That's suicide," Krell protested. "It's the last thing they'll expect," Jack said. Captain Allen's voice came over the comm. "We're going in." The Alliance strike team flew straight at the dreadnought. The Voidborn ships, expecting trickery, hesitated just long enough for Allen's team to get within firing range. "Target their command node," Jack instructed, "the central structure near the rear." The Alliance ships fired in unison. The dreadnought's shields flared, but the concentrated attack broke through. A series of explosions rippled across the massive ship. Suddenly, All the void-born ships in the area began to move erratically. Some collided with each other. Others fired weapons at nothing. "We did it," Admiral Krell said in amazement. "We've disrupted their entire neural network." But Jack's celebration was cut short when an urgent message came through. "Captain Allen's ship has been hit," the communications officer reported. "They're not responding." Jack felt his heart sink. More victories, but at what cost? When the Artemis returned to Haldren Station, Admiral Krell was waiting. His upper eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of excitement in his species. "I didn't believe it when I first heard," he said. "But the reports are clear. You damaged their relay and forced their ships to retreat." Jack nodded. It worked exactly as predicted. The void-born neural network can't handle unexpected behavior. Word of their success spread quickly through the station. Officers who had laughed at Jack now watched him with curiosity. Some even approached with questions. Captain Allen, a respected veteran with scars across his face, cornered Jack in the mess hall. "Is it true you used only 3 drones to confuse an entire void-born patrol?" "The number isn't important," Jack explained. "What matters is creating confusion in their network. They expect us to follow standard military protocols. When we don't, they hesitate." More officers gathered around as Jack explained. He used a cup and utensils to demonstrate how unpredictable movements could disrupt the void-born formations. On Earth, humans developed something called guerrilla warfare, Jack told them. When a smaller force faces a larger, more powerful enemy, they don't try to match strength with strength. They strike quickly, cause confusion, and disappear before the enemy can respond. "But we're talking about space combat," Captain Allen argued. "It's not the same as fighting on the ground." "The principles are the same," Jack insisted. "The void-born think like one giant computer. Computers rely on patterns and logic. Humans are unpredictable. We make choices that don't always follow logic." Admiral Krell called a meeting of fleet commanders. This time, instead of mocking Jack, they listened carefully. Even General Dax, who had been the most vocal critic, sat quietly. "I am authorizing the formation of special task forces," Krell announced. "Each will be trained in these human tactics. Mr. Miller will oversee the training." In the days that followed, Jack worked with small groups of officers, teaching them to think differently about combat. Most had spent their careers following strict protocols. Now Jack was asking them to improvise, to make decisions based on instinct rather than procedure. "Forget everything you know about formation flying," Jack told a group of pilots. "I want each of you to fly your own path, make your own decisions. Communicate with each other, but don't coordinate your movements precisely." Lieutenant Ilara helped translate Jack's ideas into terms the Alliance officers could understand. She had become his strongest supporter and worked tirelessly by his side. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters," Jack explained to her one evening as they reviewed training data. "We chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We weren't the strongest or fastest, but we were the most adaptable." "Is that why you're so stubborn?" Ilara asked with a smile. "Probably," Jack admitted. The first test of Jack's training came sooner than expected. A void-born scout force was detected near an Alliance mining colony. 3 ships trained in Jack's tactics were dispatched to intercept. Everyone on Haldren Station gathered around communication screens to watch. The Alliance ships approached from different angles, moving in unpredictable patterns. When the void-born moved to intercept one ship, the other 2 attacked from unexpected directions. The battle lasted less than 20 minutes. All 3 void-born scouts were disabled, with only minor damage to one Alliance vessel. A cheer went up throughout the station. Officers who had resisted Jack's ideas now came forward, volunteering for the special task forces. "It's working," Krell told Jack. "For the first time in years, we're winning battles." Jack nodded, but his expression remained serious. "The void-born will adapt. They'll study these encounters and update their neural network." "What do we do then?" Krell asked. "We keep changing," Jack said. That's the advantage humans have always had. We adapt faster than our enemies. As more officers joined the training, Jack began to see a change in the Alliance forces. They'd moved with new confidence. They began to believe victory was possible. And for the first time since the war began, the Voidborn were on the defensive. The scout vessel Artemis was small by Alliance standards, but Jack thought it was perfect. It carried a crew of only 20, most of them officers who had been passed over for promotion or made mistakes in past battles. They were the only ones willing to risk their careers on a human's crazy plan. Lieutenant Ilara served as acting captain. "We're approaching the edge of the Voidborn sensor range," she told Jack. "What now?" Jack looked at the tactical display. The Voidborn communications relay was guarded by 3 patrol ships. Not their strongest vessels, but still more than a match for the Artemis. "Now we set the bait," Jack said. "Start broadcasting on all Alliance emergency channels. That will alert them to our presence," said Officer Ben, the communications specialist. "Exactly," Jack replied. "But we're going to be sending out a distress signal that makes it sound like we're a large medical transport with engine trouble." Ilara looked doubtful but gave the order. As the false distress signal went out, Jack had the crew prepare 3 small autonomous drones. "These will project false sensor readings," he explained, making it appear that Alliance rescue ships are approaching from these vectors. The bridge crew worked quickly to program the drones. Jack watched the tactical display as the 3 Voidborn patrol ships changed course, moving to intercept what they thought was a helpless medical transport. "They're taking the bait," Ilara said. "They always do," Jack replied. "Their neural network is programmed to prioritize targets based on specific criteria. A medical transport full of wounded would be high on that list." As the Voidborn ships approached, Jack launched the drones in 3 different directions. Each drone began broadcasting signals that mimicked Alliance military vessels. "Look," Jack said, pointing to the display. The Voidborn ships had stopped their approach. "They're confused. The neural network is trying to calculate which target to pursue." "What do we do now?" Ilara asked. "We wait," Jack said. "Just a few more seconds." The Voidborn ships suddenly split up, each one moving to intercept a different drone. "Now," Jack said, "full power to engines. Bring us around behind the relay station." The Artemis shot forward, using the confusion to slip past the patrol ships. As they approached the relay station from behind, Jack instructed the weapons officer to target specific points. "Don't try to destroy it," he explained. "Just hit these communication nodes. It will disrupt their neural network connection." The Artemis fired precision shots at the relay station. Alarms began blaring across the bridge. "The patrol ships have realized our deception," Officer Ben warned. "They're returning to defend the relay." "Too late," Jack said as the Artemis's weapons hit the final communication node. The effect was immediate. The Voidborn patrol ships, which had been moving in perfect coordination, suddenly began to move erratically. One ship nearly collided with another. "What's happening to them?" Ilara asked, watching in amazement. "They can't communicate properly with the neural network," Jack explained. "Without clear instructions, they don't know what to do." "Fire on the nearest ship," Jack instructed. "Aim for their propulsion system." The Artemis fired, and the Voidborn ship could not coordinate its defenses. The shots hit home, and the alien vessel began to drift. The other 2 Voidborn ships started to retreat. "They're running away," Officer Ben said in disbelief. "They're not running away," Jack corrected. "They're seeking to reconnect with the neural network. Without it, they're vulnerable." The bridge crew stared at Jack in amazement. For the first time in years, an Alliance vessel had engaged the Voidborn and won. "Set course back to Haldren Station," Ilara ordered, a smile spreading across her face. "We have quite a report to make." As the Artemis jumped to faster-than-light travel, Jack sat quietly, reviewing the battle data. It had worked exactly as he had predicted. The Voidborn weren't invincible. They were just predictable. And prediction was the enemy of adaptation. You did it, Elara said, sitting beside him. You actually did it. Jack shook his head. We did it. This was just the beginning, though. The Voidborn will adapt to this tactic. We need to keep changing, keep being unpredictable. Will the Alliance leadership listen now? Elara asked. Some will, Jack said. Others will need more convincing. As they traveled back to Haldren Station, word of their victory spread throughout the fleet. For the first time in years, the Alliance had hope. And it was all because of one human. Jack stood in front of the room of alien officers. He had set up a simple display showing battle footage of Voidborn ships. Look at this, Jack said, pointing to the screen. Every time your ships approach in a standard formation, the Voidborn counter with the exact same pattern. It never changes. That's because it works, General Dax said. They're simply using effective tactics. Jack shook his head. No, it's because they're predictable. They react the same way every time because they think the same way every time. Jack switched to another piece of footage. Your intelligence reports suggest the Voidborn operate on a neural network, right? All their ships connected to a central intelligence. Admiral Krell nodded slowly. That's our best guess, yes. Then why are you fighting them like they're individual ships with individual captains? Jack asked. You're not fighting a fleet. You're fighting a single organism with many parts. The room fell silent. Jack continued. I've identified patterns in how they communicate. There's a delay, tiny, but it's there, between when your ships make a new move and when the Voidborn respond. If we exploit that delay, how? Asked a blue-skinned commander. Our ships can't move fast enough to take advantage of a millisecond delay. We don't need to be faster, Jack said. We need to be unpredictable. Your battle plans are too rigid, too programmed. The Voidborn can predict what you'll do because you always do the same thing. Jack pulled out his notes and spread them across the table. I'm proposing a completely new approach. Instead of meeting their strength with strength, we use what humans call guerrilla tactics. Hit and run. False targets. Deception. General Dax laughed. Primitive warfare. This is space combat. Human. The principles are the same, Jack insisted. The Voidborn neural network is designed to counter logical, predictable responses. It can't handle chaos. Jack pulled up a simple simulation he had created. It showed Alliance ships moving in random patterns, breaking formation, attacking from multiple angles at once. Your ships attack in perfect coordination, Jack said. But perfect coordination is perfectly predictable. What if some ships acted independently? What if your captains had freedom to improvise? Admiral Krell leaned forward. Our military doctrine is based on thousands of years of evolution. You're suggesting we throw it away for human chaos. I'm suggesting you try something the Voidborn won't expect, Jack said. Look at this. He showed them battle footage where Alliance ships had been forced to break formation due to damage or obstacles. In those brief moments, the Voidborn ships showed a delay in response, a hesitation. You see that? They don't know how to respond when you don't follow the script. A tall, thin officer named Captain Zane stood up. This is absurd. We can't base our strategy on primitive human warfare. Why not? Jack asked. Nothing else has worked. The room erupted in argument. Some officers shouted at Jack, while others argued among themselves. Admiral Krell watched silently. Finally, Krell raised a hand, and the room fell quiet. Mr. Miller, what exactly are you proposing? Give me a small team and one ship, Jack said. Let me prove this can work. You want command of an Alliance vessel? General Dax asked, his voice rising. No, Jack said. I want to advise a commander who's willing to try something new. Someone who understands they have nothing to lose. The room fell silent again. Then, surprisingly, Lieutenant Elara spoke up from her position near the door. I volunteered to work with him, she said, if the Admiral permits it. Krell looked at Elara for a long moment, then back at Jack. You'll have one ship, the scout vessel Artemis, and a small crew of volunteers only. If you fail, human, I won't be able to protect you from the Council. Jack nodded. I understand. What's your target? Krell asked. Jack pointed to a small void-borne outpost on the star map. Here, a minor communications relay. Not important enough to draw their full attention, but significant enough to matter if we succeed. Krell nodded slowly. You have 1 week to prepare. Don't make me regret this, human. As the officers filed out, most still grumbling about human arrogance, Ilara approached Jack. I hope you know what you're doing, she said. Jack smiled. So do I. The alien delegation watched as the small human ship docked at Haldren Station. It was nothing impressive. A simple transport vessel with minimal weapons. Many officers had gathered to see this human who claimed he could help them win an unwinnable war. Jack Miller stepped out of the airlock and looked around. He was shorter than most of the aliens, with brown hair cut short and a face that showed signs of past battles. He wore a simple black uniform with no medals or rank insignia. Welcome to Haldren Station, Admiral Krell said. I am Admiral Krell, 4th Fleet Commander. Jack nodded and offered his hand. Krell looked confused until another officer whispered something in his ear. The 4-armed alien awkwardly took Jack's hand and shook it. Thank you for the welcome, Admiral, Jack said. His voice was calm and steady. I understand your situation is dire. Some of the alien officers snorted or made sounds that Jack guessed were their version of laughter. He ignored them. Lieutenant Ilara will show you to your quarters and provide whatever you need, Krell said. Lieutenant Ilara stepped forward. She was tall and slender with pale blue skin and large eyes. This way, Mr. Miller. As they walked through the station, Jack noted how aliens from different species moved quickly out of their path, staring at him with mixtures of curiosity, doubt, and even anger. They don't think much of humans, do they? Jack asked. You're the first human any of us have ever met, Ilara replied. And you arrive claiming you can solve a war we've been losing for 20 years. What would you think? Jack smiled. I'd think it was either a very brave person or a very foolish one. Which are you? Ilara asked. Let's find out, Jack said. Jack's quarters were small but comfortable. After settling in, he made his first request. I need access to all battle records from the last 5 years. Every engagement with the Voidborn, successful or not. I need technical specifications on your weapons, shields, and communication systems. And I need all observational data you have on Voidborn behavior. Ilara laughed. That's classified information. The Council want. If the Council wants my help, I need to understand what I'm dealing with. Jack interrupted. I don't need to know your secrets. I need to know your enemy. Ilara left to consult with her superiors. Jack waited patiently. 3 hours later, she returned with a data terminal. You have limited access to battle records for the past 2 years and basic specifications on our standard systems, she said. Admiral Krell had to call in favors to get even this much. It's a start, Jack said. Thank you. For the next 3 days, Jack barely slept. He studied the battle footage over and over, sometimes watching the same 10 seconds dozens of times. He filled a notepad with strange symbols and diagrams. When he asked questions, they often seemed odd or irrelevant to Ilara. Why do Voidborn ships always attack in groups of 3 or 9? He asked. They're more effective that way, Ilara said. But why those specific numbers? Jack pressed. Why not 4 or 10? On the 3rd day, Jack looked up from his work. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, but they shone with intensity. I need to speak with Admiral Krell and anyone else with decision-making authority, he said. They won't listen to you, Ilara warned. You're just one human. Sometimes one is all you need, Jack replied. Reluctantly, Ilara arranged a meeting with Admiral Krell and a handful of senior officers. They gathered in a small briefing room, most wearing expressions of boredom or irritation. "Make this quick, human," General Dax said. "Some of us have a war to fight." Jack nodded and stood. "You've been fighting this war wrong from the beginning," he said. "And I can prove it." The room fell silent as Jack Miller, the first human most of them had ever seen, began to explain exactly why the seemingly invincible Voidborn could be defeated. Admiral Krell stood with his forearms clasped behind his back, watching the last evacuation ships rise from the surface of Nexus 7. The blue-green planet had been home to over 12 million Alliance citizens. Now it would belong to the Voidborn like so many worlds before it. "How many did we lose?" Krell asked, not turning away from the viewport. Lieutenant Voss consulted her datapad. 813 civilians couldn't make it to the transport ships. Military casualties are at 26%. Krell closed his upper eyes, a gesture of mourning among his species. This was the third evacuation this year. The Galactic Alliance had been retreating for almost 2 decades now. The Voidborn came from the darkness between galaxies 5 years after the Alliance formed. No one knew what they wanted. They never communicated. They simply took. "Sir, the Council expects your presence at the emergency meeting on Haldren Station," Voss said. "Of course they do," Krell replied. "They want someone to blame." The journey to Haldren Station took 3 days. Krell spent most of it reviewing battle footage, searching for anything they could have done differently. The answer was always the same. The Voidborn ships moved faster, hit harder, and seemed to know Alliance tactics before they even deployed them. The station hung in space like a silver wheel, the last great fortress of the Alliance. Krell's shuttle docked among dozens of military vessels from all 7 species of the Alliance. Inside the main council chamber, the mood was grim. Leaders from every Alliance world sat around a large circular table. Some attended as holograms, their worlds too distant or too endangered for in-person meetings. "Admiral Krell," said Councillor Bren, an elderly Solari whose luminescent skin had dimmed with age. "Please explain how you lost another core world." "The Voidborn brought 3 times the forces we anticipated," Krell said. "Their new shield technology rendered our main cannons ineffective. We saved over 90% of the civilian population. Small comfort to those left behind," said General Dax, the reptilian commander of the 3rd Fleet, "or to the families of the soldiers who died covering the retreat." "We all understand the gravity of our situation," said High Chancellor Elia, her hologram flickering. "But assigning blame does nothing to address our problem. The Voidborn now control 32 star systems. Our intelligence suggests they are preparing a major push toward the Central Worlds." The room fell silent. The Central Worlds were the heart of the Alliance. If they fell, everything would be lost. "Perhaps it is time to discuss terms of surrender," Councillor Merith suggested quietly. "We might save billions of lives." "The Voidborn don't take prisoners," Krell said. "Every occupied world goes silent within days. We don't know if they kill the population, or something worse." The debate raged for hours. Some argued for a final, desperate stand. Others wanted to flee to the Outer Rim. A few even suggested a suicidal strike at the Voidborn command ships. As tempers rose, a young communications officer entered the chamber and approached the High Chancellor. She whispered something, and the Chancellor's expression changed. "We've received a communication," Chancellor Elia announced, silencing the room. "From a previously uncontacted world in the outer sectors. They call themselves humans." General Dax snorted. "Another primitive species looking for protection, no doubt. We can barely save ourselves." "Actually," the Chancellor continued, "they're offering assistance." Laughter erupted around the table. "One species, against the Voidborn." Councillor Bren shook his head. What could they possibly offer? The Chancellor looked down at her notes. "They say they've observed our conflict through long-range monitoring. They claim to have insights into Voidborn tactics and weaknesses. They're sending a military advisor." "A single advisor?" General Dax laughed again. Do they understand the scale of this war? Admiral Krell remained silent, but something stirred inside him. Not hope, he'd abandoned that long ago, but curiosity. When does this advisor arrive? He asked. Tomorrow, the Chancellor replied. A human named Jack Miller.